Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. My name is Deanna Klooster, and I will be your host. As a former correctional officer in Alberta for almost 2 decades and the founder of Blue Line Fitness Testing, which provides law enforcement fitness testing and first responder wellness workshops, I started this podcast as a way for female first responders to share the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of their daily work. I want to showcase the unique perspectives, skill sets, and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go. Welcome back, guys. It is season 4. Season 4, you guys. Freaking amazing. And today I am joined by an absolute rock star. Today I'm joined by Deanna Klooster, who I met through Blue Line. Deanna is currently an animal protections officer with the Calgary Humane Society. She's been there for 5 years. And prior to that, she was a community peace officer up here in Edmonton. Deanna is also a dog rescue mom with one of the cutest freaking dogs I've ever seen named Jay, and a foster cat mom. So I feel like you really just fell into this job and it suits you completely and perfectly. Deanna and I met through Blue Line. She came and ran her pair with me, and is just absolutely probably one of the most inspiring people. She has the hardest work ethic I've ever seen, is probably one of the most determined people that I've ever met, and is just a beauty of a human. So welcome, Dee. I'm so pumped to have you. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Nikki.
So tell me, because I know like we've talked obviously like career plans, we've talked, what you're doing and where you're going and all that sort of stuff. But I never really kind of got from you your story, like how you got into this, kind of what drove you towards law enforcement or anything like that. So tell me your story. How did you get to be an animal protections officer with the Calgary Humane Society?
It's a little bit of a longer story, I guess. I think I've always been geared towards law enforcement, and I think, my family would all agree with that. I don't come from a law enforcement family, but I've just kind of always been that person growing up. Even as a kid, I was always very intrigued with police officers and anything to do with law enforcement. And as I got older, really interested, really started moving towards that point. And when it was time to graduate high school and start looking at different avenues, I really looked hard into it and decided, I want to go into law enforcement. I want to do this. This is kind of my calling. And I went to Mount Royal University with their criminal justice degree. And I did my 4 years there. And in my degree, they have a practicum option. And I took that practicum, and I actually did my practicum at the Calgary Humane Society Animal Cruelty Investigations team. And so that's how I kind of first learned about this part of law enforcement. I think a lot of people don't know about. We're a very unique part of law enforcement, and just I think a lot of people sometimes don't know we exist. And so it was really cool as a student to do my practicum with these peace officers and see what they do day to day, really get a taste for law enforcement, what it's like. And so after I finished my practicum, graduated with my degree, I was looking at other law enforcement options. I actually wasn't sure if I wanted to go into animal protection side of, the industry. And I ended up at the Edmonton Humane Society as a peace officer. That's where I got hired on right after my degree. And so I was an animal protections officer for Edmonton Humane Society. And I did that for 10 months. I did my training through the city of Edmonton, though. So I trained with their bylaw officers and did their 6-week program, I believe it was. It was called ACAP. It's Animal Control and Protection Program. And this was, a few years ago where we still had community peace officer level 1 and level 2s. And so animal protection officers were level 2s at that time. And that's how I got my peace officer level 2, was through this ACAP program with the city of Edmonton. And I did 10 months up in Edmonton with the Edmonton Humane Society. And then there was a position down at Calgary Humane Society, and I got reached out to by my current supervisor. And I'd always kind of wanted to come back to Calgary. And so I ended up applying with them, got the job, and I moved down. And that was 5 years ago. And being a peace officer, already having that training, it just transferred down. So I was able to just start with Calgary Humane Society as a peace officer level 2 and just kind of hit the ground running down there with their team. And like I said, that's been 5 years now, and it's 5 years that have flown by so, so fast.
It is crazy, hey, how that like it just goes. Yeah, I was saying to myself the other day, I'm like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
like this and this and this. Like it was, just a couple of years ago. And then I was like, no, it was 7 years ago, Nikki. Like, what the fuck? Right? Like
Yeah.
time just like and of course, so in that time, in that 5 years, you had 2 to 3 years of COVID, which
Mhm.
obviously is a huge part of that.
Yep.
Um, I just want to kind of take it back just a little bit. So you did your degree at Mount Royal College,
Yes.
and so is that like does that kind of is it a generalized criminal justice studies in that you're learning psychology, sociology, you're covering some kind of more practical based stuff because obviously it sounds like with this practicum information
Mhm.
or practicum sessions, is there anything else kind of in that degree program that you cover as part of the criminal justice kind of
Mhm.
program?
Yeah, it's a great, great degree. And, I'm probably a little biased in saying that. But it's a really good healthy mixture of there is practical, but then there's a lot of theory. So yeah, we did a ton of courses on the charter, on criminal law, but then we also did like evidence techniques, interviewing skills. There was an option to do, yeah, practicum, or if you wanted to go the honors route, then there would, that was more the academic side.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of, you also got to do electives. So you could go into kind of the psychology side or the sociology side. A lot of people got minors. I kind of spread out my degrees, so I didn't get a minor. I just wanted to take in as much as I could. And so I took a lot of anthropology courses, some business courses, psychology, sociology, because that's all open because Mount Royal is a university. So there's a lot of different courses being offered. So you can make a really cool degree and just get a lot of knowledge in those 4 years, and definitely stuff that's very applicable once you get into the industry. It's good to just have a lot of different knowledge on a lot of different things to kind of help you when you hit the street.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, so I'm dating myself because I keep calling it Mount Royal College, right? So that's how old I am because it was a college when I went to university. It is. It's a full. Same with Grant MacEwan, right? Grant MacEwan to me was always a college, and now it's a university as well. Um, so did you have an opportunity to do one practicum, or did you have like a practicum each year, or like how did that work?
Yeah, so we had one practicum. It was typically in our third or fourth year, and I did mine in the summer between my third and fourth year. And you kind of do it like you would with a normal job. You apply, so they get a bunch of uh, places that are offering to take on a student, but then you have to apply and you do interviews. You have a cover letter and resume, so it really helps put you through those motions for once you get out of the degree and it's time to get a job and get through those processes. And the people who interview you for these practicums are the actual officers or workers in that job. So I was interviewed for a couple of positions who you're interviewed by the officers themselves, like RCMP, corrections, community peace officers, anything like that. So you really get a good feel for what law enforcement interviews are like and what the
Mm-hmm.
process can somewhat be like.
That's awesome. I really like that. I really like that because I think that is something that's lacking
Mhm,
in a university-based education versus like a trades-based based education.
mhm,
Is that real world application? Like when you get out of school, just because you have this piece of paper saying that you are very smart does not
mhm.
mean that anybody gives a fuck.
No, and
You have to be able to like still pass the interview, right? Like,
that's exactly it. And honestly, you can learn a lot in this degree, and it's a really great degree, but to a certain extent, nothing's going to prepare you for the real life, what
mhm.
actually happens, oh, just how crazy it can get. And so it was really good. I had great practicum officers, and I actually still work with one of my practicum officers. She's, now my supervisor and work partner. And they made sure to show every side of it. And now when because I get practicum students now, and I make sure too, that we're not hiding them from the realities of this world. They get to see
Mhm.
the good, bad, the ugly. And I think that's really helpful so that they know what they're getting into. And maybe this isn't right for them, or maybe this is exactly right for them.
Yes, that's fantastic. I completely agree with that too, because I feel like when we give the polished side of the job, and that's what we show, and I think this is true for the public too, not just for those that are looking to get into it, but when the public only sees the polished side of the job, it's much easier to I don't know, either form judgment or kind of set your stereotype or your bias based on that polished side of the job. When you see everything, the nitty gritty, the dirty, the disgusting, the day to day, the not glamorous, the not polished, right? That gives you a much better idea as to, what these jobs actually entail, the toil it's going to take on your body, the amount of energy that you're going to have to put in every day when you show up for work. And I think that that's something that we need to share with people, because it is a shock when you get into it, when you think you know what you're getting yourself into. Because I say this all the time, and basically everybody that I've interviewed says that, you thought you knew what you were getting yourself into, and then you get into it and you're like, holy fuck, wait a minute.
Yeah,
this
that's
is
exactly
this,
it.
this is
Yeah,
more than I thought. More than I
mhm,
thought.
yeah.
Okay, and so then the other thing I want to do is I want to take it back to this ACAP training, because
Mhm.
so I had a friend who actually was with Edmonton, and when you said that you did your training in Edmonton, I'm like, oh gosh, maybe you guys were in the same class. So we'll have to talk after
Yeah.
the episode about it. But and so it's a 6 week training, and you were doing it at the training academy here in Edmonton. Is that right?
So it wasn't at the Solicitor General Training Academy. I actually did it at a city building because some of the City of Edmonton officers were instructors with
Okay.
Solgen, and so they just ran their own course in their own city buildings just off of the Solgen grounds, and which was great. And it was such a small class. There were six bylaw officers, and then there was me and my work partner from the Edmonton Humane Society. So it was us two girls and then six bylaw guys. So eight people in total, pretty small class for, yeah, I believe it was 5 or 6 weeks.
That's awesome. Sometimes those small classes is nice too, because you kind of get a really good class dynamic going. You get some, a little bit tighter camaraderie. You get a little bit more one-on-one time, I feel like, or more like observation from the instructors, which I think is sometimes lacking when you get these classes of 30, right? You look over, like I know because I used to, do workout at the training academy, and
Mhm.
you're trying to watch like 30 people do a cuffing technique or do an arm bar, like, and you're like, yes, I think I caught all of them, but like, I'm not quite sure. And then you're going individually, and you're like, did I really see this person? Or, and then sometimes maybe that's the one that the person screws up, or that's the one that the person does perfectly that time, but all the other times they've screwed it up. Right. And so you're like, it's nice when you have those smaller classes, a little bit more personal attention. So
Mhm.
what was covered during that 6 weeks? Like, was it a little different than kind of what you went over in school, or was there some parallels? Was there some kind of duplicate stuff, or was it really just focused in on specific Edmonton based like bylaws and things like that?
It was a really good mixture. I think my schooling went more in depth on a lot of the like theory stuff around criminal law and the charter, but they definitely made sure we understood the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that one, a bit about the criminal law, but a lot about provincial law and bylaws as well. So we did a lot of learned a lot about that. We also did a lot to make sure, on report writing, notebook taking, ticket writing, that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, there was almost a whole week dedicated to animal handling skills. So that I think really makes it stand out compared to a few other programs, because this is for people, whether that be animal control or animal protection. Every day you're going to be dealing with animals. And so I think that was really important to know, and to spend time on. And it wasn't just dogs and cats. They also brought in a lot of exotic, like reptiles and snakes, to make sure that we also knew how to handle those, because in this job you will handle every animal you can probably think of. Sometimes it's like I said, it's a lot of it is dogs and cats, but a lot of it is, you know, um, it can be wildlife, it can be exotics, it can be livestock. So I think that was really important. And then there was also the focus on like control techniques. So we got, baton training, handcuffing, any sort of physical takedowns, that kind of stuff as well. Just to, make sure we can, keep ourselves safe and keep others safe as well.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I can't believe they fit that all in 6 weeks. That's just like, wow,
It
jam
was
packed.
crazy. It was a crazy few weeks, that's for sure. We learned a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on the fact that it's not just dogs and cats because as you were
Mhm.
saying this, I'm like, yeah, animal control, like okay, so like dogs and cats, and I was like, oh God, I wonder if they have to like touch snakes because like me and snakes,
Mhm.
we not fans. No, no. So like as soon as you're like, yeah, they brought in reptiles, I was like, no, I'm out. Like that's not a job for me. No, thank you. You want
Yeah.
me to hold this lizard thing? Nope, I'm good. I'm gone. See you later.
Yeah.
Like,
You definitely, I think a lot of people come in, I was one of them. I wasn't the most comfortable with exotics when I first started. And it's just kind of part of the job and you learn just really, you learn how to handle them. You get used to them enough and then they're just part of the job. You just go in and you get it done. It's kind of funny in 5 years or I was a practicum student where, yeah, I wasn't that comfortable to now. It's just another day in the job and sometimes you come across animals that you're like I have no clue how I'm going to wrangle this animal or anything like that. You come up with a lot of creative ways or innovation ways and thankfully we have other people like our partners to help out and it's kind of crazy the things you come up with but you get it done and that's kind of the whole thing about the job as long you just got to get it done.
yeah, even as you're saying that, I'm thinking like, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with like a raccoon. You're gonna have to deal with like porcupines. You have to deal with like random fucking moose that just decide that today's the day to go for a little trot through Calgary. Like, right? Like,
It's
and
definitely wild.
well, I was gonna say, and Calgary, go way closer to the mountains, so probably way more bear based encounters than we would get here in Edmonton, right? Like, yeah,
In Calgary, we have a good team of fish and wildlife officers who we work incredibly close with the Alberta fish and wildlife officers in our city, and they take on a lot of wildlife stuff. Thankfully, more what it kind of if they need maybe a little bit of assistance on like I know I've been called out to help them like on a hawk call, or there's the odd time where they're a legal species, so you're not allowed to own them. We team up on those because that's actually under their legislation. But a lot of times those animals might not be looked after properly. So then it also falls under our legislation. So we definitely team up a lot with the fish and wildlife officers. Definitely with anyone who deals with animals, there's a lot of teaming up because a lot of times offenses cover all sorts of legislation. And so you all have to work together to address all those issues together.
yes. So you're telling me what I'm hearing you say is that there is Tiger King alive and well somewhere down by Calgary. Is that what I'm hearing?
I haven't had a tiger, no, but I've had many illegal reptile species that you're not allowed to own in Alberta. And thankfully, I've made some good friends over at Fish and Wildlife, and I can give them a call when we end up with some of those animals that you probably shouldn't be owning. And there's usually a reason you probably shouldn't be keeping those in your house.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Well, when you get the
Yeah.
Tiger King call, I need you to tell me. I need you to like text me and be like, Nikki, just literally text me Tiger King, and I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I want to know all about it.
I feel like it might be hard in Calgary to have that. I feel like it might be easier outside the city, but yeah, don't worry. If it ever happens, Nikki, you're my first text message. That's for sure.
Okay, I just need to know, even if it's just like a lemur or something
Yeah.
like that, something random. I need to know.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so that's awesome because it leads me kind of to my next question. So now we're down. We've done 10 months in Edmonton, got our feet
Mhm.
wet, kind of,
Mhm.
learn the ropes a little bit, and then move down to Calgary, coming in as an experienced officer because obviously you've got your training, you've been on shift and stuff for 10 months. So, what does it look like in Calgary compared to Edmonton? Is what kind of one of my questions. But
Yeah.
what does a day in the life of a Calgary Humane Society animal protections officer look like?
I think the fun thing is that there's no routine day. You never know what you're gonna get. We come in and on our shift. Typically, we check dispatch, see what it calls might already be on the board. Um, if there's nothing on the board, I guarantee something will be coming in short from our dispatchers. There's definitely a high demand um, for our law enforcement or enforcement of the Animal Protection Act in Calgary, but also just in Alberta in general. We make sure you're suited up. We are in normal uniform like normal community peace officers, so you'll see us in the gray shirts, the navy blue plant pants with the gray stripe, and our Kevlar vests and our duty belts. We, like I said, we'll check dispatch. We also check, all the any sort of voicemails, emails. if there's other officers in different agencies who are needing help or they want us to join up on some certain issues or calls that come in. And then if there's calls on the board, we start heading out to the city to start addressing those. There are 5 of us field officers for the whole city of Calgary. And typically we have 7-day-a-week coverage. But usually at any day, there's only 2 of us on. So that is a big city for 2 officers to manage and address at any one time. So we definitely keep very, very busy just in the, responding to calls for service or complaints or reports, anything like that. And then, the other bit of our time is done doing paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork with this job. We, just due to doing reports, following up on files that maybe need to be followed up on. Also, any sort of charging. So we do charge under the Animal Protection Act. The Animal Protection Act, which is the main legislation we enforce. It is a provincial legislation, so it's only here in Alberta, but you can be charged under it. And if you're found convicted, can get up to a $20,000 fine and or a lifetime prohibition from owning animals. So if we investigate an offense that is, severe enough that we deem it needs to be charged, we'll obviously lots of times consult with our Crown prosecutor as well. We do lay charges. And there's a lot of paperwork when it comes to charges too. So we definitely keep very busy, not just in the field, but in our office, catching up on all that administration tasks that have to be done.
Wow. Yeah. That is like when you said that there's only 5 of you, I'm like, what? Oh my God. Like that is crazy. Just even for them, like even if you literally were just to take it down to just dog and cat owners to only have 5 of you, that's crazy. And then add in all the exotics, all the extra things, like what, yeah, that's crazy. Holy man. And so you say very paperwork heavy. So walk me through kind of what that looks like. Is that, paperwork in that is documentation and reports? Is it court paperwork? Like what kind of things are you dealing with paperwork wise?
Definitely reports, very heavy. Any report or complaint or concern that we go out and investigate, we have to generate a report for. And sometimes they're pretty simple reports, sometimes they're way more in depth, depending on what happens at that scene. And then also, if we're doing joint files, say with Calgary Police Service or Calgary Animal Services, which is bylaw down here in Calgary, or Alberta Fish and Wildlife, a lot of times we need to send over our own big reports. So that would, include basically everything that happened, everything you did, all of your photographs, video, evidence, everything to send to them so that they can do their side of things under charges. So it's not just a ticket if you get charged. We actually send off long form informations to the courthouse to have these charges applied, because people have to go to court to answer to these charges. And then we have to send off a court brief. So again, it is everything that we've done in our investigation, everything that leads us to believe an offense has occurred and why this person's being charged. So that takes a lot of work, just doing all of that. And again, then, all of the, emails, I'm sure everyone knows how, just constantly emails, especially in this day and age. So you have to stay caught up on those too, just to make sure all the information staying relevant, that maybe people have questions about. But like I said, every scene we attend to has a report. And then if you charge, there's going to be a lot more paperwork on top of that.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, wanted to pop on here before we got into this next episode and let you know about a couple new rad ideas that we have for the podcast. So the first one is we have a survey up, and I would love to know what you guys think about the show. I'd love your feedback. I'd love your ideas for the next season. And I'd just love to know what you like and what you dislike about the podcast. And I'm going to sweeten the deal with a $50 gift card randomly drawn from everybody that completes the survey. The survey is going to be in the show notes of all of our shows, so no matter what time you start listening to the podcast at, you'll get a chance to win that gift certificate. The second thing that we're bringing in now is the ability for you guys to leave us a voicemail. You guys can actually call into the show, leave us a voicemail, let us know what you think about the show. If you have a funny story you'd like to share from your time as a first responder, I would love those and showcase those on the show as well. So make sure you guys check out that voicemail feature. It's going to be in the show notes, and check out the survey. Make sure that you get that chance to win that gift certificate. Yeah, I think that comes with basically any law enforcement. Anytime you're like charged, like, okay, I would really like to charge you because this is like a heinous offense, but also like, God damn, the paperwork and the court date and the other things that come with this, right?
Yeah,
so
it's definitely a lot. But it's definitely worth it. I mean, it's part of the job, but it needs to be done, especially if there are certain offenses that occur that, need to kind of be held accountable in the court of law to, whatever this person's actions might have been.
Yeah. And so do you guys work 8s or do you work 12s?
We work 10s actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what's your schedule look like? Are you like a 2 on, 2 off, 4 on, 4, anything like that?
We're kind of a confusing one. So we have our team we have a field supervisor who's Monday to Friday, and then the other 4 of us are split up into teams of 2. So we have a Monday to Wednesday team, a Wednesday to Friday team, and then we alternate weekends. So the best way is kind of like a 5 on, 4 off, 3 on, 2 off is the best way to kind of explain it.
Okay, well, that's good. So you're only working every second weekend.
Yeah, which is nice. You kind of know what days off you're going to have no matter what. And we're only day shift just because we do not have the coverage for dispatch or officers or anything at night. And so Calgary Police typically takes over for us in the evenings and overnights. If a concern comes in and it's severe enough, then police will go to. If it can wait for the next day, then it'll just wait till we come back on shift. But we are typically on shift from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, cool. And do you always have a partner? Are you working alone? Like, how does that kind of play out?
Yeah, we definitely try our best to always make sure we're going out in partners just due to officer safety risks. We're going into people's homes. We're dealing with people's loved pets. And so a lot of times emotions run high. It can be an incredibly dangerous job, just like any job in law enforcement. So we definitely try to stay in partners. On the odd time, just due to maybe vacations or scheduling, you might be on your own. But most of the time we do our very, very best to make sure we're going out in teams of 2. It's just good for investigations too. Having 2 pairs of eyes, people catch, you might miss something, but your partner will catch it. So our team's very big believer in going out in partners.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with that. It always kind of strikes me just a little like worried when I hear like, conservation's out there by themselves, fish and wildlife are out there by themselves. And I'm just like, so A, you're out there in the wild with wild animals by yourself. B, you're out there in the wild with like whoever you may meet out there by yourself. Like, what do you mean you're by yourself? I'm like, oh yeah, we just, just get in our truck and go by ourselves. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. So I'm really glad to hear that you guys have partners. And I mean, I think it just makes the shift go better, just when you have a partner, again, depending on who your partner is, let's be serious. But if you have a good partner, it makes the shift. It can make or break the shift, right? So that's awesome to hear that. So tell me then, so when you're going, because you brought it up and you said, you're going into these people's houses and these emotions are running high. And so like, what are some of the types of calls? Like the one that always comes to mind when I think of like a humane society officer is like either somebody, and again, I always default to winter because this is Alberta. It's minus 30. Somebody's dog is tied up outside. The poor thing is shivering and barking and, and you're calling because you're the neighbor that's going, this poor dog needs to go inside or somebody needs to come rescue this poor dog. Or the flip side of, this dog is very aggressive. It fucking hits the fence every time you walk by and like, we need to get somebody to come over and take a look at this pet. But like, what are the types of calls that you guys get called out on?
So those 2 examples, great examples, Nikki. So the first one about a dog outside, that is definitely falls under the Animal Protection Act. When it gets to like aggressive dogs, that's a bylaw offense. That's under, typically municipalities have bylaws outlining that, or then you have the Dangerous Dog Act under the government of Alberta. So that would be strictly bylaw. And a lot of people they don't know the difference. So the biggest thing we tell people is animal protection officers protect animals from humans, and bylaw peace officers protect people from animals. So that's kind of our simple way of kind of explaining the differences between us and bylaw officers. But under the Animal Protection Act, which is what my team enforces, it basically is what you need to do to basically care for your animal. So you need to provide adequate food, adequate water, adequate shelter, adequate veterinary care. It outlines obviously anything to do with physical abuse is obviously illegal, both under the Animal Protection Act and the Criminal Code. It then also abandonment. So when people abandon animals, that's an offense under the Animal Protection Act. So it can be black and white, but it can also be a bit of a gray area. Under the legislation, it's a pretty small piece of legislation. It doesn't take much to read through. But there's plenty of either people just not knowing how to properly care for their animals, whether, or potentially, when it comes to maybe abuse where it might be intentional, that we investigate under. So like you said, with a dog being outside in the winter and it's shivering, that would be lack of adequate shelter. And so under the Animal Protection Act, that is an offense, and that's when we would go out. A lot of what we do is education. A lot of people just need to be told what they need to do with their animal, or it might be compliance. So we can issue compliance orders to have them maybe put in a shelter, an adequate shelter for their animal, or take it to a vet if it requires veterinary care. But the Animal Protection Act also gives us authorities to seize animals, and that's if an animal's owner or caretaker is not readily available or able to relieve the distress that's occurring, or not willing to relieve the distress, then we can seize that animal. And so when an animal is seized, the animal owner is still owner of that animal, but we're taking care of that animal. We're taking over to relieve the distress, whether that be if it's cold outside and it needs to not be, without shelter, or if it needs veterinary care, anything like that, then we take over. We bring it back to the Humane Society, and our team will take over from there. We have a full animal health team, including vets, vet techs. We have animal care staff. We have all sorts of staff members at the Calgary Humane Society. It's a fully functioning shelter, and then they take over as caretakers of that animal while we continue our investigation and kind of go from there with, dealing with the owner and hopefully getting a resolution in place to whatever the offense was that led to the seizure of the animal.
Yeah, I really like that you say, like education is a lot of what you do, because I think that people, I feel like for the most part, and again, maybe this is just because I'm soft and I've been out of the game for a while, but like, I feel like for the most part, people don't maliciously do bad things to their animals that they just, like you said, just don't know. I mean, there's definitely, let's be fucking serious, there's definitely people that are horrible pieces of garbage that do things awful to animals on purpose, maliciously. But and so then there's that fear from those people who are not doing it maliciously, but kind of, I feel like probably know that they're not doing the best that they can do, but they're scared to reach out. They don't want to get in trouble because they know that they haven't been doing what they need to do, but they don't know how to do what they need to do. Right. So I really like the fact that you guys' first approach is education. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And so let's help you learn what you need to do. And then the follow-up of, okay, so now so if you continue to not do it, well, now we have to go down this avenue. But like, if we follow up and, hey, that education works and this animal's thriving and everything is great now, awesome. Then that you've had that kind of happy ending, I guess, right? That this, the animal's taken care of, that the people are happier because they know that they're taking care of their animal properly. I think that's really awesome. And then I guess just malicious pieces of garbage that I just, let's lock them up and throw them away, because I can't stand the people like that. Anytime we would get them in the jail, I would just be like, I'm not doing anything for you. You want extra things? No, you're getting nothing. You want an extra sweatshirt? Eat shit. Like, you want this? Go to hell. It's not happening. You get nothing. You get nothing from me. You're a piece of garbage that like took it out on a defenseless animal. Like, fuck off. So yeah.
And that's kind of the thing about the job is we see people who just don't know what they're doing. It might be their first animal, or their they're maybe, economically they're struggling, and, we can offer resources, we give education. We don't want to take an animal out of a home. If we, but if it is best for the animal, or if they're distressed and not being relieved, then we have that option. But unfortunately, we do come across people too who are malicious and who are intentional with their harm towards not just animals, but humans. Like I said, we work really close with Calgary Police because there's a huge link between animal violence and human violence. I'd say Calgary Police is our closest agency partner that we work with the most, just due to that, right? And like you said, you see them in the jails because people do get, we assist on joint files for criminal charges with people, because just under the criminal code, you can be charged and you can go to jail for cruelty to animals. And so when it reaches that threshold where it needs to be criminal, where there's intent, then we definitely work with Calgary Police, and they sometimes, like you said, end up in penitentiaries or jails or something like that, because there are some people out there who should just not be around animals, or probably humans sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I would 100% agree with that. And we'd see it at the jail too, right? We would have somebody come in at first for violence against animals, and then, a couple months later, now it's minor violence against people, and then a couple months later, it's major violence against people, and you're like, why can we see this and nobody else can see this? Hello, judges. Hello, law, like legal system. Can you not see? Did you not see that this progression was coming, right? Like, yeah. So, okay. So walk me through, because I love story time. So I want to hear, because I just love it. And I like, and just hearing, like, you're just so knowledgeable, Dee. Again, I knew you were amazing at your job, but just hearing you talk and hearing how in depth and kind of just like you just touched on so many different things, and I'm like, oh God, I didn't even know about that. No, I didn't think about that. No, yeah, like even the legislations and how that divvies up between the different roles, like just so knowledgeable. So hit me with, tell me some funny things. Tell me some, like, I don't know, I'm sure you would have had some definitely like scary encounters with animals. Like I said, if it was me and a snake, fucking see ya, Gonzo. That would be partner up. Yeah, like in. Right? I'm not doing that. I'm not looking for the lost snake in the fucking ductwork. Nope, eat shit. Somebody else find out. Nope.
Oh man, it's so funny. We always joke about in our office that we should all write a book by the end of this career, just because you will do things and see things and experience things that no one will probably believe, or you will ever think that you would deal with in this industry. And that's just the fun part about it. Probably one of my favorite stories that kind of touches on all that, which is kind of funny. It's also a little scary. My first field, I'd moved down to Calgary, back to the Calgary Humane Society. It was, I think, my first day in the field, and I'm with my work partner, who had been my practicum officer when I was a student and is now my supervisor, my field supervisor. She's fantastic. She has been a great leadership and role model for me in this industry. Me and her go out together to this call, and it came in as an abandonment. So the tenants had been evicted, and under the Animal Protection Act, any animal left in a residence past tenancy or eviction is classified as abandoned. So we got a call that these people had been evicted. There's no electricity in this house, and the landlord was calling and saying, hey, these animals are abandoned. And there was, I think they reported as a dog, some puppies, and I think they reported as 2 snakes. And we're like, all right. So we prepare ourselves for dog, puppies, and 2 snakes. They didn't say how big the snakes were, so I think we just grabbed maybe some little tubs or something. We load up our vehicle, and our enforcement vehicle, and we head over to the scene. Landlord meets us there, lets us in. And I remember there was a mom dog, and she had day-old puppies, and there was like 10 puppies, I think. There was a ton. And mom is hungry, and mom's maternally not she's trying to protect her babies, so she wasn't too happy with us at first. So we noticed that we're walking, and there's a reptile, I believe it was a bearded dragon, just runs across the floor in front of us out of nowhere, and we're like, okay, well, we didn't know about that one, but that's okay, we'll catch him in a second. And the landlord was like, oh yeah, snakes are in the basement. We're like, okay. So we start walking down these stairs, and there's no electricity in this house. And we go into this basement, so there's no lights. It's just dark. And we're hearing this weird hissing sound.
Nope,
And
I'm out.
yeah.
I'm fucking out. I'm
And
out. There's no lights. We're going to the basement. A bearded dragon has ran across. I'm out. I'm in the car. I'm out, bud. You're
right.
on your own. This is you in the basement by yourself, buddy.
I'm with my partner, and like she's great with reptiles too, and so she's showing no fear. And in my head, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're hearing this, like it was the weirdest hiss. And we found out later it's because the snake was sick, so it couldn't properly like breathe or anything. So that's why it sounded so weird. We take out our flashlights, and we just see this massive breeding operation of different kind of snakes. So it wasn't just two snakes. And in we see these massive tanks, like Nikki, they're huge. They're not your typical cute little pet snake tanks. They're massive. And we're like, oh no. And in the corner of one was this massive snake. And he's the one who's hissing. And he starts hitting the glass too. And
No.
with he's starting to like, yeah. And we're just like, oh gosh, we go look at this thing, and we're like, this thing, we right away realized it's a Burmese python. So those are illegal to own in Alberta because they're dangerous when they're that big. And this thing, we figured it was coiled up, and we're like, this thing's got to be about 8 feet long. And there's two of them. And we look at the one next to them, and there's what's called a reticulated python, also illegal in Alberta. And it looked about 8 feet or longer as well, but it wasn't doing too well. It wasn't like, it was pretty docile because it didn't have any heat. It was really bad husbandry. Like all the animals, like I said, didn't have heat, I don't believe they had water. They were mite infested. And they were just, dirty conditions. So not great. And then there's just these racks of Rubbermaid containers of, other snakes that were smaller. And we're like, all right, like we've got our work cut out for us. So we started just taking things out. We made friends with mom dog and puppies and got them out. It's amazing what a little bit of food can do. And she became our best friend, and we got them out. Started taking some of the snakes out in those Rubbermaid containers, caught the bearded dragon. And what we found, the reticulated python, like I said, he was pretty, not very responsive. So we were able to get him. And I think we just put him in a pillowcase because that's how you can transport snakes. And then just in like a smaller tub. And the last thing we have to do is take out this Burmese python who's just angry as all get out. And he keeps striking the glass, and we're using our flashlights. And so we start calling other agencies because we're like, we need help. There's only two of us. And with big snakes, you should have, I think the rule is one person every 3 feet plus one. So if he's about 8 feet long, we need a few more people than just me and my partner. And we start calling around. And of course, no one wants to come out to this. No one wants to come help us with this angry snake. And at the very last, let's try Calgary Fire Department. Let's just try. So we call into our dispatcher. We're like, hey, can you get on the line with the fire department dispatch? She's like, absolutely. We're still she keeps us on the phone. She calls Calgary Fire, and they're like, yep, we'll send out a truck. And as we're still on the phone, we hear the fire truck pull up. We hear these firemen just come stomping through the house, and they come barreling down those stairs like no one's business. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Right?
Yeah.
And it was just so funny because we'd breathed a sigh of relief because we're like, okay, like we should be okay. There's about 5 of them. There's us 2. We should be okay. Because we're always nervous with those kind of snakes. Like, you don't want anyone getting hurt or injured, and those things, they're a little bit dangerous. So it was good. It was a sigh of relief, but I'll never get over how we're still on the phone with our dispatcher, who's on the phone with their dispatcher, and we just hear them come just like a herd of cattle up on the, above you in that house, and then just come ripping down those stairs, just ready to go with this snake. And they asked us, they're like, what's the game plan? We're like, I don't know. We have to get the snake out of this tank and, and get it contained. And we knew it wasn't going to fit into anything we had. And so we went searching in this house, and it was a very, very sketchy house. They were definitely involved in some other illegal activities. Yeah. And we found a Home Depot orange like pail, like those big orange buckets. And you're like, you know what? I bet we can get them in here. I think we can do it. Like, that's the only thing that's going to hold them.
An 8-foot Burmese python, you're going to stuff it into a 5-gallon pail?
5-gallon, yeah. And it had a lid. So we're like, perfect. We find a knife in this basement that had some, interesting white residue on it that you can probably take your guess on what it might be. And we start punching holes in this, so it, in this bucket. And we're like, all right, we're gonna put the snake in this Home Depot bucket. And we told the guys, and so the firefighters literally were at 1, 2, 3, and they just slid open this tank door, all started grabbing it. And me and my partner just got to stand back as they're just grabbing this thing all over the place. And they just put it in this bucket. We jumped on top of it with this lid, and it's hitting the lid. It's so angry, right? And so we're just holding on to this bucket. And
Oh my God.
yeah, and so we got him, and so we ended up naming this python Bucket, because his picture, because we couldn't take a picture of him in the bucket because he was so angry. So we named him, in our system. His picture in our system is a Home Depot bucket, and so his name was affectionately Bucket, and we still refer to Bucket to this day. And I'll never forget, my partner's driving the squad car down Deerfoot, and I have this bucket in between my legs in the front seat holding the lid down, and I just feel this snake hitting this lid, and I'm just like, please grip strength, do not fail me. We have to keep this lid on because I don't know what we're going to do if this thing gets out on us in our vehicle, the two of us. And thankfully nothing happened, and we were able to get him in. And then we called in Fish and Wildlife off afterward, just due to, obviously, you're not allowed to own them, and they started a joint investigation with us for that. But it was one of my first days in Calgary, and it's still probably one of my favorite stories because you're just like I said, you never know what you're getting into, and it is going to be a circus, and you better think on your feet. And thank gosh for all the other agencies who, we're all out there trying to support each other. And thankfully those fire guys showed up for us because, yeah, I don't know what we were going to do if they didn't come and help us. That was going to be a not fun time, that's for sure.
I just see, like, I literally am hearing this and I'm like, you guys are freaking amazing. Like, and fire that came in, like, yeah. And like you said too, just the teamwork and yeah, like, come on in, we're coming in hot, we're here, we're going to help you. Like, but just like, in the truck holding the lid on, like, there's no freaking way.
No.
Like, please God, don't get out this giant snake. Like, no, I that's not even, there's not even any part of me whatsoever that wants anything to do with that.
Yeah.
And like, first day, like, you're like, okay, so yeah, it can only get better from here. Like, that was
And you know what? That's just like child's play now for us. Like, it's just so funny where that was like such a crazy day, and it sticks out in my mind, but also now it's just, I don't know if you'd even blink at it now, right? It's just funny how things play out. But that just kind of shows. And like I said, you get a call for one little thing, and then it kind of snowballs into something in a whole nother realm.
Yeah. That's like a great way to sum it up. A whole nother realm. Yeah, we're just gonna go get this. We're just gonna go get this abandoned dog. Oh, and wait, and then there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this. Oh my gosh. So what, like, along the lines of that, like, so what have there been some really good happy endings for you, like, where, you've come in and been able to rescue these animals and seen them then be adopted? And because I guess working there, you kind of see the whole process, do you not? Like, you're bringing them in, you see them, when they're in the shelter, and then maybe on adoption day. Like, how does that play out for you guys?
Yeah, I think that's a really cool part, is that we get to see from start to finish. And like you said, sometimes our files don't have happy endings or happy results, but there are the ones you do get wins on, or you get those happy stories. Those are the ones you hold on to. And yeah, we see them because our office is in the Humane Society. That's where their kennels are. That's where they're taken care of. That's where they're looked after. So we see them a lot of times if they're seized for medical or abuse. We see the progression from, maybe coming in as a broken or sick animal, and after the time and care given to them, see what they turn into, and a healthy, lovable, amazing animal. And then to see them go into adoption day and to see them go with a new home is definitely, it's an undescribable feeling. It's something you hold on to because, like I said, sometimes we don't get a lot of wins, but when you get those wins, you hold on to them for dear life, because sometimes that's what keeps you going. Obviously the most memorable one would be my dog. He came from an abusive situation, and I was there when we took him out of the house, and he had to go through a lot of medical. Took quite a few quite a few months. And then eventually, after he'd been owner surrendered and he was medically cleared, I couldn't say no to him. He'd kind of wiggled his way into my heart. And, you know, he was just the perfect roommate and adventure partner. And I kept him. And there are days where we're living our best life. We're out hiking or camping, or, you know, he's just hanging out with my family, being absolutely loved on. And you just kind of sit there and think about what his life was before. And you're just so thankful, or you're like, I'm so thankful for, you know, those officers who showed up that day, or those police officers who, you know, followed a tip or followed an inkling, and to see where they are. You know, another big one is when we see animals come from hoarding situations, and you see them get better, get healthier, and they're out on the adoption floor, and you see someone walking out with their new cat, right? And you know that they were living in deplorable conditions, not getting food. They were, you know, sick and ill. And to see them happy and loved, and you know that that animal is going to be living its best life, that definitely means everything to us. And I think one thing, you know, I'd like to mention about our unit, and a lot of people don't know, the Calgary Humane Society gets zero government dollars. There's no taxpayer dollars towards the Calgary Humane Society. So everything, so the animal health team, which is the vets, the vet techs, the animal health assistants, the care, us peace officers, everyone, all of that is funded through donations. So we have an amazing donation base of people, of donors who donate money. And that is what keeps the Calgary Humane Society going. We do not see a penny of taxpayer dollars. And to see what we do, what this agency, this organization does with donation money, that's all that they're given. And we turn it into, from mass seizures, or, you know, whether it just be surrenders, someone can't take care of their animal anymore, or offering behavior help, or adopting out animals. All of that is done through donations and by people who just have a passion for this work.
That's awesome. Like, I mean, and we will definitely, we'll be throwing the link in the show notes for that. If you want to donate to the Calgary Humane Society or the Edmonton Humane Society, because I think it's probably the same here for Edmonton, probably fully donation based. We'll definitely throw those links on there, because I didn't know that. I thought that there was always like a portion of like government funding that went to that, but it's fully donation based. Wow. Like, and yeah, just the amount of work, right? Like,
yeah. And I think the difference is, so Edmonton Humane Society no longer has their peace officer unit. It folded a few years ago. So all of the Animal Protection Act enforcement done up in Edmonton is done by their community peace officers through their animal control. And then as well, Edmonton Police actually has an animal cruelty investigations team that comprises of 2 police officers. Down here in Calgary, we don't have that yet. We just have an amazing group of police officers who, in their day-to-day roles, also take on and help us out with some of this stuff. You know, we have a liaison officer or subject matter officer, but he also has his own job as well. So a lot, we don't have our own unit in Calgary Police, but that is, I think, something interesting about Edmonton compared to down here in Calgary, where we still have our unit, but Edmonton, all of it is done through their bylaw and their police officers.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know too. Okay, so because I know we're getting long on time, and I've like taken up your afternoon and your day off, but just one thing that you definitely touched on, and that I kind of want to break down, and then we'll jump into some rapid fire questions. But what really strikes me is when you're telling me, you know, the stories, and you're talking about like, you know, your dog Jay and the situation that he was rescued out of. How do you keep your emotions? Like, how do you not take that home with you? How do you not, and I mean, I'm assuming obviously you do take some of that home, that trauma and that those really, really bad calls, but like, as I'm comparing it to, and again, my experience working with humans, I feel like I was able to dissociate a lot easier, like leaving the jail, because I was just like, yeah, like those, you know, those are pieces of shit. Like, fuck them, and they're in the jail, and I don't care, right? Some things obviously stick with you, but like, I feel like I would not be able to like walk away from my day and dissociate from the horrors that I had seen from, you know, again, hoarding situations, extreme animal abuse. Like, how do you take care of yourself mentally and emotionally in a role like this, when you're seeing this, like, again, just like this really horrible stuff every day?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And it's definitely one we get asked a lot. Like you said, we always say don't take work home, but I think everyone knows in this industry it's pretty hard not to, and no matter what you're going to, right? We deal with
Hmm.
really heavy stuff. So you're going to take it home. I think the biggest thing is make sure you have a good support system. Make sure you have your people who can support you in that when you are having bad days. But a lot of it definitely comes through, I think, just compartmentalization. You have to be objective. Definitely under
Hmm.
the law, there's some things that you're like, I obviously don't agree with this, but it is legal, so there's nothing I can do. There's just, you need to be able to compartmentalize a lot of it, have a good support system, and remember you are someone else outside this job. You wear the uniform does not wear you. And so you are, a big part of our identity is obviously in law enforcement. We're very proud of what we do. So we're very proud to be what our jobs are. But it's always good to remember that that is a small piece of you and you are a whole other person outside of that. Make sure that you have interests outside of the job, that you have people outside of the job, honestly. Sometimes it's good to have friends who aren't in law enforcement. Your friends in law enforcement will carry you through some of your darkest times. And I cannot say enough good things about my people in law enforcement who have, supported me through some of my darkest days and, darkest files. But then there are people who don't understand our world as law enforcement officers. And sometimes it's refreshing to remind yourself that I'm a human. I have interests outside of this. I have passions outside of this. So, a big thing, I like to hike. I like to camp. I play on a softball team that is really good for me. I find being on a team setting and that's not related to my job is really, really good and healthy. Just getting away with my dog. And like I said, I can't say enough good things about my family who, like I said, they're not from law enforcement. We have not a lot of law enforcement in our family, but they're our biggest supports. And I always know that if there's a bad day, that they're going to be there to listen or just to, sometimes you don't need to talk about it. You just want someone to be there. And so I think that's the biggest thing is just remember that there is so much more to you than just your job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We wrapped up season 3 talking about that kind of sense of identity that we wrap into our job, and that the job is not you. You are not the job. You are still you when you step away from the job. So I really like to hear that that's kind of what keeps you sane and keeps you able to keep doing the job, right? Is that separation. Yeah, like just what I said, I just am in awe of you. I'm like, I loved you before. I love you even more now because I think to myself, like, this girl does this every day and sees these things every day and just is still this really, really well functioning human. So, I mean, yes. And like, I love the pictures of you hiking with Jay and the one it was at Pets in the Park that you guys had just it was I think it was in
We do
June.
dog jog. Yeah, dog jog.
Yes, yes. Okay, so tell me about this. Tell me about this dog jog because I think it's super cute.
So it's one of our biggest fundraisers for the Calgary Humane Society. We do a 5K walker run, and everyone who signs up fundraises for the Calgary Humane Society. Our protection team, all of us peace officers, we always join a team, and a lot of our support staff or our friends and family join with us. And usually we have two officers in uniform with our vehicle and a booth so we can talk to our, the public and our supporters and stuff. And then the rest of us who aren't on that day will go and do the run with our dogs. Because majority of us do have dogs or animals, but it is for mostly dogs, and everyone gets to bring their dogs. It's a dog friendly event. There's it's kind of like a little festival. There's food trucks, there's events and treats and prizes and vendors, all kind of geared towards animals, and definitely a lot of it is geared towards dogs. And yeah, Jay's been a part of it the last couple of years. I had to work it this past year, so he had one of my best friends walk him in the 5K. And then in the year before, we did the 5K run together because I was off. And it's just a lot of fun. It's great community outreach. We get to meet lots of people. And it's just really, fun to see we see a lot of alumni animals who come back for it. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. And we do it every year in June. And it's just a blast. And we get to enjoy the sun. We usually get some good weather for it. And yeah, like I said, it's a great fundraiser for us. And it's just a 5K, so most people can do it. And it's a good walk run. And if you get to do it with your friends and your colleagues, it's even more fun.
That's awesome. Yes. And what a great idea too. Like you're going to do it anyways for the most part. If you have a dog, you're walking, you're running, you're jogging with them. Like that's a lot of reasons why people get a dog, right? Is
Yeah.
to have that companion when they want to get outside and do those things. And so why not turn it into a fundraiser? Like
Right.
phenomenal idea. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap up because again, I've taken up like your whole afternoon, but I'm going to wrap up and I love to ask these kind of rapid fire questions
All right.
just to kind of keep you on your toes and keep you going. So
Yeah.
my number one, I've asked all of my guests is what is your favorite food or snack while you are on shift?
Oh, um, definitely for our snack. Our team loves birthday cake Timbits from Tim Hortons.
Oh,
We for
yes.
we for some reason we also like the sour cream glazed ones, but we love for some reason our team just we are obsessed with them. So that's our kind of thing. And then we're also really big iced coffee or Slurpee people, and definitely I love my iced coffee. So you'll see me typically with an iced coffee during my shift some point, and then for celebrations and stuff, we always like to get, or just like a random, Thursday, we like to pick up some Timbits for the office.
I love it. Just like a random Thursday. We're just bringing in Timbits. Yes, I do. I do. I've become like the picky Timbit person now that when I'm like, can I get a 10 pack of Timbits or a 20 pack of Timbits? I'm like, but I only want the birthday cake ones and the chocolate glazed ones because the rest of them are gross. Don't give me the plain ones. Sometimes I'll hit those cinnamon ones. Those are good. But yeah, birthday cake, I mean, you're
Mhm.
straight up winning no matter
Yeah.
what when I do that. So that's hilarious. Awesome. Okay. And iced coffee. If I was a coffee person, I think that I would love that too. But yeah, coffee and me are not friends. So, but I have friends that are just massively addicted to it too. So,
Mhm.
um, okay. Next one would be what is your favorite piece of equipment that you get to use? I'm assuming you probably have some specialized equipment that you use for animals, or you just have your Home Depot bucket.
Yeah.
But what is the best piece of equipment that you get to use?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Um, you know what? We drive Chevrolet Tahoes, and I'm going to be honest, I love our vehicle. It's perfect for what we need because it's big enough that we can transport the biggest dog or, sometimes smaller livestock. I think that's really and we're constantly driving, right? Where you have to go all over the city all day. So I'm gonna actually say our vehicle is probably the most my favorite tool that we use, and we do use it. Like sometimes we climb on top of it to see things. The light bar we have to use to see things in the dark and everything. But I'm gonna say our vehicle, which is I don't know if that's dumb or not, but I love our vehicle.
No, that's not dumb at all. When you're in it all day long and it has all the things that you need in it and it does what you need it to do, that can definitely be your
Yeah,
favorite piece of equipment because literally you just live in your vehicle all the time if you're not in
yeah.
somebody's house. So yeah, I like that. I like that. Okay. And then the last one I have for you is what is a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that would be potentially looking to get into this career, interested in being an animal protection officer, or kind of just working even within the Humane Society?
Oh man. That's a hard one. Have a really good sense of humor, have a really good support system, and you know what, just make sure you have lots of other interests outside the job, and you can love animals and you can want to, do everything with animals, but make sure you have other things outside this job. And you know what? And always remember you're tougher than you think you are.
Yes, very nice. And I think that's something that we do learn as we work in this career because there's things that you're like, if this had been me, like you said, even 3 years ago, even 5 years ago, like even your first day on the job, right? You're going, oh my God. And now that's like a whatever, right? Like one of the time you're like, holy shit. Right. Yeah. You're
Mhm.
tougher than you think you are. You're stronger than you think you are. Sometimes we just have to mentally get over that block of like, oh, I can't do this or this is too hard. And yeah, I think that's awesome. That's fantastic. And yeah, I totally agree with the need for the external, support group or the network or the family or whatever it is, those external activities that keep you sane.
Mhm.
Those are lifelines for sure. You cannot become this job and you cannot turn your whole life into being this uniform or being this role, because it will chew you up and spit you out if you don't have that perspective and you don't have that ability to step back and go, okay, I'm not at that anymore. Now I'm at this softball game, or now I am part of this family and I'm doing this, right? So yeah, that's awesome. Fantastic.
And just make sure you can laugh, right? Like,
Yes.
you know what, you're gonna just have to enjoy the crazy stuff that you see. Like they say, we get a front row ticket to the wildest show on earth, and I would fully agree with that. So make sure you just have a really good sense of humor, and you know it. There's times to be serious, but there's also times that you know what, you can laugh, and you need to enjoy the funny parts of what we do. Because I think if you don't focus on those funny parts, those other sides are going to really bring you down. So make sure you have a good sense of humor.
Yes. Yep. I absolutely agree with that too. Yeah. You got to be able to laugh at some of the crazy shit and just kind of shake your head and be like, nobody will believe me when I tell them what we did today. Nobody will believe me when I say that I sat in the truck with a Home Depot 5-gallon pail and held an 8-foot snake inside of it.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody will believe you. Nobody will believe you. Oh, that's so funny. Awesome. Well, girl, it has been an absolute freaking slice talking to you today. Like I said, I've learned a ton. I have just wrapping my head around all the things you told me, and like the different facets of the job and the different legislation and the, like you said, how your role flows so seamlessly with other law enforcement agencies, I think is really, really cool. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your time and energy with me. Thank you for agreeing to come on the show and share your journey and share your, like how you got into this and what that job looks like for you. Thanks for being an awesome dog rescue mom and a foster cat mom too, because we need more people like you that are taking care of these dogs and these cats and going out there and saving them every day too. So love you and thank you for being on the show, girl.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It was definitely my pleasure and honor.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six.